Hi, it's 4:15 Wednesday, October the 9th, and over the past, I'm currently in Paris, France, in the cutest Parisian hotel ever. This place is amazing that my wife found. And over the last for the last 8 hours, I haven't been coughing, but the previous 24, I was coughing, I would say uncontrollably, obviously, but consistently through the 24 hours. And on Monday night, I had the race of my life, the bike race of my life in Roubaix, France, in the north, which I'll be heading back to tomorrow. Let me rewind. For the past year, I've been planning this trip to Roubaix, France, to Paris and Roubaix, France, to compete in the Masters, the UCI Masters World Championship. I had competed this time last year in Manchester, England, in the same competition. Last year, I got a silver medal in a team relay with Team USA, which was the highlight of my week. But I have to admit, my goal was to have an individual medal because in 2022, I got my first UCI World Championship individual medal, which was an absolute complete shock to everyone that knows me, and especially me. But once that happens, it changes you and it makes you hungry. And that in 2023, I missed the podium by about 0.2 of a second, maybe 1/4 of a second. Not a small amount, but in my mind, it's a gap I was hoping to close. And that year leading from 22 to 23, I had a training plan and I executed it, and it wasn't enough to make enough of improvement in my time. But at the end of 23, I knew exactly what I needed to do. It's one of these situations that, in my mind, I visualized it. At the end of 22, I'm not going to tell anyone what the things I needed to work on, but I had these two choices. And I decided to go with one. But knowing if this doesn't work, this is the other option. I don't know how I would say it's the only option, but it was the one that made the most sense. So when 23, I took this way from 22 to 23. And when I was done with the World Championships, I didn't get the result I wanted. I realized that I should have taken this turn. Not a big deal. Live and learn. And this is what I like to share to people. And why I like to talk about things like this is because this is all part of a journey. And I think it makes you appreciate it more. It's frustrating sometimes. Appreciate it more when you make mistakes, and even better when you correct them. And time is lost, and time you cannot get back. It's a non-renewable resource. It's the greatest non-renewable resource. But it's one of these lessons that if you learn, maybe you could share it with others. But what do they say? The only things you can really call your own are your mistakes. And that was definitely one of mine. So from 23 until 24, I worked on that path. And as far as I could tell, it totally worked. I got the result I wanted to in my national champion, my United States national championship. I made a significant improvement in my time, and my main individual goal race is the 500-meter time trial. There's an event, the match sprint, and the 200-meter time trial qualifier that precedes the tournament, that creates the seeding. At the national level, that's always a goal for mine, to win the gold. But at the World Championship, I am not that strong. And also, I know in order to be the best in your country, as hard as that is, and trying to be great at all of your events, it's possible. But at the world level, for me, it is not possible. And you have to pick and choose what you can focus on. And Saturday was my 200 meter time trial in the morning, and then immediately went into match sprints, where I had I had a disappointing 200 meter time trial, but in the scheme of things, it's what I would not be shocked for me to do. I didn't have much time on the track here, because again, it wasn't the 200 meter time trial. Is an extremely technical event, and it's something I don't have time to practice on. Eventually, I will have time, and I think everyone knows once I get the time to work on it, my improvement should improve drastically. But the 500 meter was always my goal for this trip. And that match sprint tournament, which, funny enough, had a huge turnout. I think there's 26 of us. The top 16 advanced into the tournament. I made it. I was 12th. I made it into the tournament, which was, I'll say, it was a goal. But given how many people were in my race and how many talented people were in my race, and also how many people I did not know. There were a lot of Frenchmen because we're in their country. There's a lot of other people. So I had no idea. And it's entirely possible that I could have not finished in the tournament. At 12th out of 16, that was actually pretty close. But the funny thing is in that tournament, there was at least 3 pairings of fellow countrymen. There was 2 Brits racing each other, my friends. 2 Czechs that were racing each other, my friends, the Peters. And 2 Americans racing each other, Charles Moore and me. And the funny thing is that we got to have another rematch for the national championship title. Spoiler alert, Charles beat me. But if it went to 3, next time, Charles. But anyway, this happened the exact same thing in 23 and 22. So me not doing a great 200 meter, but then doing a very good 500 meter. And so it was expected by a lot of people. Some people weren't shocked that it didn't do well. And more importantly, I didn't know this, but people told me this afterwards. My competitors, my friends, that me not doing well in the 200 is expected, but me doing well in the 500, I didn't disappoint. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So that not doing great in the first day of competition kind of messes with your head. But for me, it was an opportunity to get into the race mode, getting used to where the officials were, how the timing goes, how the race runs. And it is a great way for me to just get acclimated, knowing my A race was going to be in 2 days. But here's the other thing that kind of compounded onto that, like, mindset of being a shaken mindset, as I would describe it. Is this happened in 22, particularly because 22 was hands down my breakout year. I remember flying to Los Angeles, where the World Championships were being held, and thinking a dream would be a top 5 finish in the 500 meter. I knew I wasn't going to do well in the 200. But at the end of that tournament, the match sprint tournament, where I finished 8th, I was really shaken. I realized how fast these guys my age really are. My friend Ryuji, a former Kieran racer, Jakob, Marcel, tons and tons and tons and tons of talent. And I knew that I would be lucky to get 9th place in the 500 meter. Because the 500 meter in my mind is it's a race of brute strength. And there's no technique. There's a little bit of technique. That's at the beginning, the standing start, which I practice ad nauseum. But it is a sign of brute force. And even my 147-pound worth of brute force, you're just going from a dead standstill to and then going for 500 meters and hanging on. But going into the Monday that I had my 500 meter, and oddly same type of schedule, Saturday. For me, no racing on Sunday because I did not advance in the match sprint tournament, and then racing again on Monday for the 500 meter. And I knew that I would not, even if best case scenario, I would barely make it into the top 10. So I was seated in that race in 22. I think I was the 3rd heat of, I want to say 15 heats. Yeah, that sounds about right. So there's a term called the hot seat. And it refers to, as far as I know, when it pertains to cycling, in a time trial, it's the virtual leader of the race. So as the race, a time trial is an individual race where each rider goes off by themselves and completes the course, whatever distance it is, 500 meters, 1,000 meters, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 4, and longer distances, 40 kilometers on the road. So when I finished my ride in 22, let me roll back. When I started my ride in 22, I knew I had to hit it out of the park in order to even crack into the top 10. For me, I've had times like this where I don't know if it's actually happens, but there's a switch that's flipped in my head, and it's basically I kind of shut things down, but just say to myself, go. I did that a few years ago for a 1,000-meter time trial when I knew when I was the second to last to go that if I didn't do the performance of my life, that I wouldn't end up on the podium. And I had a huge personal best that moment. And so in 22, when it came to the moment to me being locked in a start gate, it's a large, heavy apparatus that clamps onto the rider's bike and will not let go of you until the race starts. And there are countless examples of people screwing that up. And the start gate terrifies people. And what I was told when I touched down here, and this is also another reason why to come a little bit early, was that people claimed the start gate timing, there's a it's a cadence, it's a countdown timer that's synchronized with the release mechanism on the gate that will allow you to go. If you leave prematurely, the rider will literally flop forward like a rag doll, and then it will release by the time the rider, if the rider's fortunate enough to straighten themselves up. So getting that timing wrong will be catastrophic. If you're lucky, it drags a little bit and you don't catch the timing right, but it's not as detrimental as it could be in the worst case scenario. So in my 22 race, I'm sitting in the gate and I said, you got to go have the race of your life. In the third heat, I have an aero helmet on. I come across the finish line. I liked what I had just done, the 2 laps that I had done at full speed. I thought they were technically fine. But I didn't hear my time announced. And with artificial lighting and everything else, I couldn't see my name on the Jumbotron, the scoreboard, so to speak, that has the rider's name and their time in order. So the top rider on the list is the virtual leader of the race. When I came around the finish, and again, I couldn't hear what was announced. And by the time I came back around again, I looked up on the board and I saw this number, I saw my name and a number, more importantly, that I had never seen by my name, let alone I thought was possible. I was targeting a time of 35 seconds flat, maybe, which again would barely land me in the top 10. And hang on, I made this tea a while ago, and I knew a 35 flat. I had not raced indoors doing a 500 meter ever. I was the reigning U.S. national champion at this point, 2 years straight. But I'd never done a 500 meter time trial on a 250 meter track indoors. So I didn't know the benefit. I knew of, obviously, but I didn't know how much faster personally I was going to go when you didn't have to deal with wind and atmospheric conditions like that. So 35 flat was my target goal. It was faster than I'd ever gone outdoors, but a reasonable amount. Fastest I'd gone outdoors by that point was 35.25, or a high 2, almost a 3. When I came around and finally was able to focus, I saw Wong 34.4, a high 34.4. That was arguably one of the most shocked I'd ever been from my performance. Has to be. That 1,000 meter time trial impressed the heck out of me. But what I had just done in those 34 seconds blew my mind. 34.49. And to go like 3/4, 0.8 of a second faster indoors, it happens, but I was not expecting that to happen to me. So that was just icing on the cake. So I've just finished the third heat. As it turned out, I was in the hot seat for the entire race after that, until the very last heat. And I have to tell you, being in Los Angeles, my home country, surrounded by friends, and watching their excitement for me let alone me, my excitement, I could not process. Because this is all new to me. And especially being in one of the early heats, the third heat, and having to wait 10, at minimum, it was 10 minutes. And when I knew I had done something extraordinary was my friend Alfred Nash, who was the announcer, and he's the announcer for the Los Angeles Velodrome. He came on and right before the last heat, which had the two people I knew could beat me. He said, no matter what happens, Will Wong will stand on the podium. And that's when I literally broke down in tears after that. As luck would have it, not only did the two gentlemen beat me, Joachim and Andy Weathers, Andy won, and he set a world record. So to be in a race that you lost, but was won by a world record performance, that's special. So into 24, I had all that negative headspace template. What if my luck runs out? Keep in mind, I've been remarkably consistent in the 500 meter, indoors and outdoors. The 23, I did another 34.4, a little bit faster, but not fast enough. And that got me fourth place. But in the back of my mind, you have to wonder when your luck's going to run out, or just something bad happens. You get that timing wrong on the gate. Or just anything. Or anything if you get sick. The other thing that happened on this trip was my wife, Betsy, wanted to come. She lived in Paris for 3 years, and we had not been back since we got engaged, and we had meant to come back a year after when we got married for a honeymoon. I proposed to her in Paris in 2000, and I wanted to, we had made plans on September 12th, 2001. We had made plans way back on that date to get married by Justice of the Peace in a private ceremony, and then immediately get on at noon, and then we get married at noon, and then 2 p.m. go to the international airport, Dulles, in D.C., and fly to Paris and to come back. Well, 9/11 changed all that, and as luck would have it, we never made it back to Paris. And good things. For good things. We raised a wonderful son, managed our careers, and I had my hobby. I had originally planned for her to not see my marquee event, just because, I'll be honest, there's a couple things. I didn't want her to witness the time I do finally choke. And also, I knew, as relaxed as I am at a race, I'm still a little bit, you have to be, especially at the World Championships. And what I like about it is people leave me alone. They know everyone, I think a lot of people want to spend time with me, but what I really appreciate is that they know, most people know, to leave me alone when things are coming up, and I appreciate that. And that's generally reserved for, riders of a certain stature. But she wanted to come and see me race that night, and we had decided this weeks and weeks ago. And so that was an added difficulty, challenge, or just something different than I'm used to. But I have to say that experience leading up to my race was fantastic for her, me, and everyone else, I think. Because in my mind, I consider myself a leader in my cohort. I'm well known, and I like to think well liked, and I try to lead by example. And in doing so, I've met a lot of amazing human beings at the velodrome, and I had talked about these people across the world to Betsy, and I really wanted her to meet some of these people. But also, I was there to do a job. But I have to tell you, as soon as we walked into the velodrome, all these people I wanted her to meet were so incredibly gracious. It really warmed my heart. And the fact that they recognized her without her opening her mouth, because they'd seen her on social media so many times. And they were so genuinely effusive towards her that they all made her feel at home across the world. And I think it made her, she already realized that people appreciates her husband, but that just really solidified that. And I have to, if anyone who met her that night, thank you for making her feel at home all the way across the Atlantic, and having her hear all of these different accents in English was great, and her getting to speak her Parisian French to Frenchmen was also great, and helping translate for me. But the time comes, leading up to Monday, well, actually that whole weekend, from Saturday on, one of the things I've noticed is when I'm getting sick is that I start to break out, and that happened Saturday night. And I'm like, that's either stress or I'm getting sick. My lower back was hurting, another sign that I'm either mentally stressed, emotionally, mentally stressed, or I'm about to get sick. And I was being positive. I've never gotten sick racing until August, where I came down with COVID on the last few days, and I raced the team sprint with definitely COVID. But I tried not to think about that because there was nothing I could do. I'm all the way here in Roubaix, France. I got to race. The velodrome is extremely hot, and the reason why it's extremely hot, it should be hot. It should be hot, and it should be humid, because those are the two conditions that reduce air density, and believe it or not, and make the conditions fast. So you have less wind resistance. Even though there's no wind, there's still air, and you have to. The biggest factor in a bicycle race is wind resistance, and it's mostly on your body because it's the largest component of your entire mass in the scheme of things. And so when the conditions are better, like hot and humid, it's better for racers. More opportunities to set records and personal bests. But it's heck of uncomfortable for spectators. But I have to say, as soon as I walked in that velodrome, I was just like, holy cow, that's hot. And I had planned to arrive at the velodrome with plenty of time. I think 3 hours before. And so I, wanted to take advantage of all these my wonderful friends and taking Betsy around. And at the same time, staying professional and getting things ready. But as bad luck would have it, turns out they advanced the schedule about an hour, or half an hour technically, but everything was running late in the program on the last two nights, so it was fair to assume that they were going to run half an hour late again. But something happened, and they advanced the schedule 30 minutes, and they were on time. Not only were they on time, But yeah, so they advanced it 30 minutes. So that's an hour less time I had. So where I thought I had 2 hours to warm up, I only had less than 1, and I had to get my bike ready and everything else. And I had dumb luck. Charles happened to be walking down the hall as I was getting ready, slowly getting ready, and he said, "We're gonna go in less than an hour." Fortunately, he wasn't even dressed, so he was in as bad a shape as me. But that just added all this pressure. So, Betsy really wanted to stay out of the way, and so I got my bike ready, got all the stuff done, bike check, which is a procedure you have to do at the World Championships, just to verify that your bike is in compliance with the rules. There's rules and regulations surrounding the minimum weight of the bike. That's the only thing that they measured, and also the dimensions. But I got all the things ready that I needed to do that would allow me to race, and the one thing I waited for was actually the warm-up, because push comes to shove. There's a list of things that has to happen before I even can get on the track. And if I get warmed up and don't do those things, that was a waste of time, because I'm not legal to go up there. So it was a good game plan, and it was a good pivot. I got all that done, got my warm-up in, a minimum warm-up. But again, this is something I trained for, is to have a very fast turnover of a warm-up. And more importantly, it was hot in there, so I was already physically warm. And to that, I remember after I got off the bike, it was on my trainer, my stationary trainer that I bring with me all over the world. I sat down and I'm like, was it hot? Was it really, really hot in here? Because I just felt like clammy. And I was like, is this clamminess stress? Is that what this is? And it's just trying to do some kind of calming thoughts, and it worked. I just tried not to think about like the pain in my back and the cough I had started at this point. But I'd actually had a cough like that after I got COVID and with allergies. And I was hoping actually when I flew to Paris in Roubaix that, they won't have the same pollen. And maybe I had this cough for weeks. But it didn't affect me when I rode. It stopped when I rode. After, it wasn't like as soon as I was done with the hard effort that I started coughing. It's very, very weird. Sucked, but it didn't ultimately affect me, so I didn't worry about it. And I remember mentioning it to Joachim, to a text, that this is what I was struggling with. And then he being him, I remember him following up a few weeks later and say, "Hey mate, how's your cough doing?" And I'm like, I haven't even thought about that. Turns out it literally went away probably last night before you texted me. So that cough came back. It was Sunday night, I think it came back. And so Monday, it's like, every once in a while. The frequency interval was long. But I knew it was a harbinger of something. The other screwed up thing is, in the US and honestly everywhere else, the arrangement of the riders in a time trial, no matter what distance, should be organized in a way that the slower riders are in the beginning. In 22, I was definitely a slower rider. I deserved to be third heat because I was an unknown entity on the world stage. And the reason for that, because time trials are frankly boring for the spectators. And the reason for this organization of having slower riders, historically slower riders that are honest about their times. And if you're doing your job as an organizer, you should be going through and just verifying that that person can, in fact, do this time in the scheme of things of this grouping. So it was like 18 heats. There's a lot of guys. There was more riders in my 500 meter time trial than there were in the 200. In the 200 meter, they did the same thing. They had my friend Ryuji, the former world champion. I think they put him at third, which is silly, but also disrespectful. And the reason why it's silly is the point of a time trial is to build excitement. So you have slower riders setting times, and it gives a chance for slower riders to be in the hot seat, have their name on the leaderboard, and to enjoy that moment in the sun. I think it's awesome. It's a great moment for you to take a picture. It's like, hey, for one moment in time, I was the fastest in the world. You know, people might scoff at that. I think it's freaking cool, and it's a great carrot a great carrot for someone like me who dreamed of that and got to experience it on a massive level of 22. So that said, the night before, Charles sent me the start list, and more importantly, the actual seating in the time trial. I was in the list. I was technically the second heat, but turns out it was the first heat. They had one rider by himself in the first heat. But I'm like, what? But more importantly, the person opposite me, when we do the 500 meter time trial, for expediency, they put two riders on the track and they kind of chase each other, but they're not really at that speed. It's just being efficient with time. And my friend Marcel Laurent, an amazing human being, an absolutely amazing athlete, but he's a much more amazing human being and one of my favorite people. He won the match sprint tournament Sunday, the day before. He repeated his world championship victory twice in a row, and he did it with just a dominating performance. And I got to stand and watch him in his next to him in his final sprint as he came flying past me at the top of the rail, at the top of the track, to build up speed into his final lap. And I have to say, I shared it on YouTube. I have to go back and watch it, and I hope the camera at least visually caught it, but it does not describe what it felt like to stand literally inches from Marcel, at him going at 80% speed. It was exactly like how NASCAR, it was like having a car zoom past you. Marcel is a huge human being, and for him to be traveling at that speed, and he still wasn't even at top speed, nowhere near top speed, was incredibly impressive. So as I'm looking at the PDF that Charles sent me, I realize I'm on the track with Marcel, which is a huge honor. But for me having finished the last 2 years in the top 5, and Marcel being the winner of the match sprint, and also finishing, I think he finished 6th or 7th last year, or 5th. We should have been way down at the bottom, and none of the orders made sense. But all I needed to know was where am I in the program, and what do I got to do to get ready to race. And I saw that, had to chuckle, but at least it's against Marcel, and that kind of connotes a little honor to me, is that the little Asian American that everyone knows and loves is racing against Marcel. And so the announcing was in a heavy French accent, which is fine. But the problem is that the acoustics, and they only had like one speaker on the complete opposite of the track from us. They didn't have one across. So even if it was muffled, if you had the sound from flanking from both sides of the track, it would probably it would improve the sound quality dramatically. And I had my friend Pete Mitchell come and help me get ready to go to the track, which I appreciate immensely. He helped Charles and I because he's just a great guy, and so that was a great calming influence. And I was ready to go. And the good thing about this is that I didn't think about like my back hurting, cough, and was just trying to get into the headspace to go. I get set up. One of the nice things is they have a countdown timer, and they'll start at 50 seconds. And I remember seeing the 50 and being able to sit up, and I'll show some of the pictures of that. My friend Marek Skorsky took all these pictures of that preceding that 50 seconds and the following 1 second after that. But it was nice to be able to be relaxed, see the 50, seeing the 50 not move, meaning countdown really hadn't even started, so I can just kind of sit up. I was all strapped in. Pete got me all set up. And I knew for that 50 plus whatever seconds it was going to be, I just needed to execute. And this is cliche, but I just needed to do what I trained. And here's a great thing. There's a lot of Petes and Peters in my life in cycling. Peter Taylor, a great friend, and just a great human being also, in the morning, just told me, Will, just at the hotel breakfast, Will, just take care of the first 30 meters, and then the rest will sort itself out. And a layperson hearing that would say, well, Will, the race is 500 meters. That only gets you to you got 470 meters to go after that. But the thing is for me, my start is my greatest asset, is because that's what sets me up to get to top speed, and executing that perfectly and just focusing on that. I'll actually go and say the first 166 meters. But definitely it is true. If you nail that start and you create that momentum in that first 30 meters before the track even starts turning, and nothing goes wrong, that's all you need to do. Because this race is so short. It's pure instinct. There's no, I need to go faster. I'm going too fast. I need to slow down. That's never going to happen. But you are going to just go all out. And that's what I love about the event, because I'm dumb and I just need to just dump it. So I thought about that. Thanks, Pete. And I just needed to nail the start. And so back to the gate thing and the timing. I was lucky on Friday I had a screwed up practice session where I literally got almost no practice except for 3 starts in the gate at the very end of the practice. And that was invaluable because I got to experience this slow gate release. It's not. And I had 3 clean, beautiful releases those times. And I've had clean releases in every time I've been on a gate, and I don't practice gate starts. They're completely different from what I do on the side in front of my house and at home when you're being held. It's an art in itself, but I've never flubbed one. But again, it's a variable and it could happen. This is the time you could choke and screw up that first 30 meters and humiliate yourself in front of your wife and your friends. But I remember, and this is no joke, and that's why I want to put this on camera. I remember this. So the cadence goes, it starts counting down. Here, it beeps at 15 seconds, beeps at 30 seconds, then it beeps at 15. But here, I think it didn't beep until 10. It'll definitely beep at 10, and then no beeps, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then go. So when people are new to this, they think they go at 1. It's actually no, it's 0. I remember, and when I do starts, well, no, not when I do start. Yeah, when I do starts, I do it with that cadence, and it's burned in my mind. But there's no one there to verify that I release on time. The gate tells no lies, and it will not release you if you have bad timing. And the funny thing is when I'm practicing, is like sometimes wouldn't it be kind of funny, Will, if your timing has been wrong this entire time, and so it's ingrained in your head, and so when it comes time to go use the gate, it's not going to be forgiving because your timing has been off. But sitting there getting ready to go was not the time to think about that. But in the back of my mind, it's like, oh, shit, well, what if all these practice sessions, like ad nauseum, what if you've been doing it wrong this whole time, but it hasn't? But these are the things I think about. But this is the thing I want to mention, and I think was kind of surreal, and I don't think it's ever happened to me, is when it went 2-1. I mean, it's a second, right? I remember that gap in time between 1 and 0, and everything slowed down to milliseconds. And I remember hearing it releasing off my tire, and I went immediately. Normally you're nervous and you just rely on instincts, and you don't think. And I wasn't thinking, but I just remember time slowing down to the point between those two beeps. Well, technically there's no beep on 0. It's just go. It's go. Or maybe there is. And again, I'm on instinct and I don't hear it. But you cannot go until it releases. And I remember visualizing it and then going. I don't say it obviously didn't freak me out, but I was just like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And I knew I had a clean release because as soon as I heard, I went, and there was no hesitation, and I took off, and I nailed the start. I nailed the first 30 meters, and I kept on going. And to that, when I crossed the line, I saw my name on the board. Not my name, I saw my number on the board. And it was the target time I had been training for this entire year. And it's the time that I lost the podium spot to. And it was 0.2 of a second faster than I had ever gone indoors, which was consistent with the 1/4 of a second faster I went outdoors in August, beating my outdoor personal best. And when I saw that in the first heat, I was like, sweet. Did what I came here for. Probably won't finish on the podium, but that's a time I can be proud of. I did exactly what I trained for a year. And in 23, I went this way. In 24, I went that way. In 24, when I went that way, it got me that number up there. Marcel had a great race. So it was kind of cool to have us go off. I get off, I get down on the bike. My friend Patrick helps me off, climb down the stairs, which I appreciate, Patrick. And it was just a waiting game after that. And I was certain that, given how screwed up the whole seating process was, that I was definitely going to get knocked off. Definitely. So I wasn't paying mind to it. They didn't have a scoreboard, which sucks because you can't see your name or the person's name. I'm not just saying my name. I don't care about my name. But you can't see who is the virtual leader and know where you end up. If that person isn't you, and where you're going to end up in the final standing. Or maybe there was and I didn't see it. So I was trying to, absorb the congratulations from friends because they knew that was a stunning time. And the race went on, so it was 18 heats. And people were coming up to me and they're like, Will, you're still in the hot seat. And I'd be like, what? And I would hear my name announced in that muddled English with a French accent across the way. Wong, hot seat. I was trying not to get my hopes up high. But then as the race kept going, continued, I was like, I might end up on the podium this time, because the last two people to go that I saw sitting on opposite sides of the track was Richard Clark and Einars. And I didn't know what Yakuman had done. I didn't know what Ryuji had done. But everyone's telling me you're still in the hot seat. And again, I wasn't, for whatever reason, I wasn't focusing on like where I was in the race. I was just happy with that 34.24, and just happy, and did what I came here for. But then I was kind of getting excited when I finally realized I started watching Einars and Richard walk up the stairs, and I knew that they were about to go. And when I saw them walking up there, I'm like, maybe I should film this. And so I filmed my reaction with their time on the scoreboard. And they beat me, and which I expected. But Richard did a phenomenal job. The irony is I was trying to match his time last year, but he improved 0.55 seconds, which is astronomical for from an already fast time of a 35 or a 34.24, I think he did. But props to him, and I remember helping him off the track and congratulating him, because it was truly a brilliant ride, and I don't mind being beat as long as it's done with a great performance. And he's a good mate. He's a very, very nice man. But yeah, so that was it. I was in the hot seat for, 16 heats, and I got to re-experience what had happened in 22. And I have to say, it's totally surreal. It's awesome, surreal at the same time, of having your name like mentioned throughout the whole race as being the virtual leader. And one of these days, maybe it'll be there. My name will stay on the top. But then again, I should never have gone at the beginning of the race as opposed to the last part. So anyway, finish that, and I know I'm sick. I sit down and I'm like, yeah, I don't feel good. And we go to bed Monday night. We go to dinner, and my friend Mike buys us dinner at the sushi restaurant across the street from the hotel. After seeing how lovey-dovey Betsy and I were sitting there privately in a booth. But I remember feeling like just wiped out. And not just because of the race and all the problems. It's like that because 500 meters. It's not that big. I was like, I knew I did not feel good at all. And when I woke up Tuesday morning, I knew I didn't feel good at all. I started coughing. I was coughing all night. And I knew Tuesday morning we were going to go straight to the train station and to come back to Paris. Tylenol is an amazing drug, medicine. Took it, worked wonders until it wore off. We got to go to the Eiffel Tower. The weather was beautiful. It's been raining this entire time while Betsy has been here. She was in Paris a few days before me. And but yesterday, Tuesday, it was this phenomenal weather. Beautiful, 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 picturesque, sunny. These amazing clouds as a backdrop of the tower and then the Seine. Beautiful day. And I was so happy that we got to do that in that weather and be able to see everything like that. And more importantly, I felt fine until we got across the Seine and the Tylenol was wearing off. And I was like, we got to get back to the hotel, honey. I'm fading. And I took a nap after that. And then went out to dinner and literally crawled back into bed and slept all the way until 2 p.m. today, off and on. I never got out of bed except to go to pee and drink. And I honestly need to drink more. So, like I started this video, this is the first time in 24, 36 hours that I have not been coughing. And hey, I haven't coughed this entire, like, good Lord, 50-minute me talking. So that's good. And the sad thing is that I was supposed to do a team sprint on Friday, and my teammate, one of my teammates, Dean Todd, unfortunately, on Tuesday morning woke up and turns out he has pancreatitis. And he specifically came to France to race that relay with us. He did his own individual event, but he came here to race with us. And it sucks because he has to spend the next couple days in the hospital. Get well, Dean. But for me, I told my teammate Charles, the other third in the relay team, sorry bro, I'm actually sick. I just did what I did Monday night. Sick. I probably can be better by Friday, but the problem is that these teams are set up months in advance, sometimes a year in advance. And it would be very difficult to find someone to replace. No, it would be impossible to replace Dean. We needed to find a lesser of two evils. And I think we're going to just cut our losses and skip it. But I told Charles, if you can find someone, we can do it. I think by Friday I'll be feeling much better, because given me just laying in bed all day, which was awesome, and the fact that it's raining today kind of made it easy. It would be harder if it was sunny and I feel like compelled. I need to get up and walk. I do want to walk to the Champs-Élysées. Maybe we'll do that tonight. But we're going to come back. So the plan is I'm going to go back to Roubaix. We're going to go back to Roubaix Thursday, tomorrow. Go get my bike. My friends are my friends, and I'll see them again. I'd love to say goodbye to them. But this is what we have social media for, and we all stay in touch. And I'm glad Betsy got to experience that Monday night of just my amazing friends, making her feel so welcome. So she got the red carpet treatment, and she got to see her husband take part of a medal ceremony, a UCI Worlds Championship medal ceremony, which is an amazing experience for a bike racer. So she got to experience that, and it honestly doesn't get any better than that. And so I'm not upset, and I would like to again say goodbye to my friends slowly, but a lot of times when we do these track meets, we all go our separate ways, because we've been here for 2 weeks. Some of us have been here for 2 weeks. We want to go home. We love our friends, but we also want to go home, and I get that. And so we're gonna go back tomorrow. In 5 hours, get packed up, get all my stuff packed up, get back on the TGV, which I narrowly managed to do coming there to Roubaix from Paris. And I'm hoping that they don't kick us off, because I could not find any space for my bike case. But it doesn't matter, because I got days to sort that out. And then we're going to come back to Paris, and then hopefully the weather's better, and we can walk to the Champs-Élysées, which is nearby, and see a couple other things that I have not seen in a while. And yeah, so that's my story. When made Monday, finishing third, getting another individual bronze medal, was doing it sick. And again, kind of what Pete Taylor said is, like, just nail the first 30 meters, and the rest will sort it out. And it's all instinct. And so I know I can be sick, feeling suboptimal, and I can still nail out a world-class time. So thanks for watching. I hope I can edit this thing down. Otherwise, people are going to be like, too long, didn't watch. Thanks again.